Hello, Beauties and Beasties out there. Welcome to Beauties and Beasts, a podcast of all things Beauty and the Beast. I'm DF. I'm your host today. A couple episodes back, I reviewed the TV series Once Upon a Time and their use of the character Rumpelstiltskin, a well-known fairy tale character whose story is not adapted as much as, say, Cinderella or Red Riding Hood or Beauty and the Beast. It's a German tale, like most we know in our Western society, collected by the Brothers Grimm in 1812. Originally titled Rumpelstiltskin. Geez, my German is rusty. Presumably from an old children's game, Rumpelstiltskin oder der Papart. Really rusty. Rumpel meaning to make noise, and the word stiltzer meaning someone who walks with a limp. So Rumpelstiltskin is a noisy goblin with a limp. If you've ever wondered what the hey that really long name means. Now, this story, as we know it, actually came from sources as far back as the 16th century. All across Europe, people spread folktales of trickster fairies and goblins and imps who would sometimes help, but for a price. Not necessarily evil beings, but not entirely good either. They're kind of mischievous, you know? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's hear the story first. First, I would like to thank my $5 plus patrons, Arvin Joshua Rocks 15, Bella PinkSavage, Cosmic Trail, Poppy X Branch 2000, and TyrannosaurusVenom. You too can support this podcast by becoming a patron today. Just go to patreon.podbean.com/beautiesandbeasts or buy my merchandise on Redbubble. With the Delta variant of COVID spreading, it is recommended that you wear masks outside, even if you are vaccinated. I've got over 60 mask designs available for sale, and for each mask sold, Redbubble will donate one to Heart to Heart International. Just go to DisneyFanatic23.redbubble.com. That's DisneyFanatic23.redbubble.com. All right, now before I forget, I did say that a patron was going to call in the last episode and didn't get the chance to lend their thoughts on trolls or maybe something else about this podcast. So I'm going to allow the call in right now. Here is our patron, Poppy X Branch 2000. All right, as soon as we can get the invite in here. All right, Poppy, can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay, Poppy, can you hear me right now?
So about that.
Alright, I'm going to turn the music down.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Okay. Alright, I can hear you now.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here.
Got you on.
Thank you so much for having me on here.
Okay, it's good to have you on here. Sorry you weren't able to get on last time.
It's
and
okay.
I want to thank you again for your patronship.
Anytime.
All right, and were there any thoughts you wanted to lend on either last week's topic, because I know that was the one that you suggested for this podcast, or maybe this week's topic?
Well, I'll start with the trolls version. I'll have to say that I completely understand where you were going with, because even though I still love the first movie, I could understand looking back on the movie now. Poppy's was questionable, but she was still trying to learn as a character and still trying to understand from Branch, even if she was being too pushy with him and not understanding sometimes, but she still cares about him and wanting him to be just as happy as anyone else, which also expands from their relationship in the two series and the sequel, which I love so much. And it shows more on their relationship of communicating and understanding each other better, especially when it comes to listening to others' opinions for caring. And also, even though Poppy is still trying to learn to listen, she is still open-minded to what others have to say, especially from Branch, which I think is very good development coming from all the franchises is from the sequel.
Okay. Yeah, you do have a good point on all of that. And and thank you again for lending your thoughts. Is there anything else you want to add, like maybe about today's topic before we get into this?
Well, mostly about for Rumpelstiltskin, I have to say that I mostly like the happily ever after version, because it really shows the funny side of Rumpelstiltskin, and I do feel bad for him that he didn't get the baby in the end, because maybe he could have been a good father. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spoil.
No, I'm kidding.
Anyway, I just want to say thank you for having me on here. In fact, you inspired me to make my own audio series. It's called Trolls Moving Forward. Hang on, Grandma! It should be coming hopefully in September on my YouTube channel, which hopefully you can find in the link description below.
All right.
Yes,
well, if
Grandma.
you want to send me a link, I can put in the if you want to send me a link to that, I can put in the description of this episode. All right.
All right, I'll send it in.
Okay. Well, thank you, and yeah, sounds like you're going to be busy, so we're just going to turn you off right now. And thank you for calling in. All right. Okay. Well, if you are a fan of trolls, then go check out Poppy's channel. I will leave a link in the description when I put this episode up. Okay. Now, and might I just say, Poppy, very adorable voice. Okay, I wish I could turn this music down, but it's already in low volume, so I hope I'm speaking loud enough at least. Alright, so, once upon a time, there was a poor miller who had a beautiful daughter. And while it's normal for parents to be proud of their children, this dad liked to brag in an exaggerated fashion. It happened one day that he was talking to the king and said, "My daughter is so talented that she could spin straw into gold." Talk about unrealistic expectations for your children. You know, how did this even come up? Like, just random, oh, my daughter can spin straw into gold. Yeah. Now, the king loves gold more than anything, and orders the miller to bring his daughter and show off her talent. Yeah, he called his bluff. Great job, Dad. He actually took it seriously. So, the girl is brought to the king and put in a room filled with straw with a spinning wheel. The king gives her the night to spin all of this straw into gold, all of it, or else she will be put to death in the morning. Now, I'm sure you know that for the average human being, spinning straw into gold is impossible. So naturally, when our heroine is left alone, she bursts into tears. Because how sucky of a situation is that? Do the impossible or I kill you? This girl's done nothing to deserve this. Then, all of a sudden, the door opens, and in comes a peculiar little man who asks why she's crying. She explains everything, and he asks, "What will you give me if I spin the straw for you?" Desperate, the girl gives him her necklace. Imps like shiny things, you see. And so, the imp magically spins the straw into golden threads, because imps can do that. In the morning, the king sees the gold and is so pleased, but apparently not pleased enough because he must have more. So, he puts the miller's daughter into an even bigger room with even more straw. That night, the girl cries, the little man returns, and offers to spin the straw again, but for a price. This time, the girl gives the ring on her finger. In the morning, the king sees the gold, but is still not satisfied, and takes the girl to an even bigger room with lots more straw. I'm sensing a pattern here. This time, if she spins it all, the king will make her his wife. Yeah, at this point, I just accept the death penalty. I don't want this guy. And that kind of sends a lot of red flags, But when the imp returns, the girl has nothing more to give. So the imp decides, then promise me that when you're queen, you'll give me your firstborn child. Hey buddy, you ever heard of adoption agencies? Not knowing what else to do, the girl agrees. She is kind of backed into a corner here. She's got a choice between death or marrying this very greedy king who's threatened to kill her if she doesn't spin the straw into gold. What more can you do? So, the gold is spun, the king makes the girl his queen, and sometime later they have a healthy baby. What gender the baby is really depends on what version you read. By this time, the queen has forgotten her promise to the little man. How do you forget something like that? Until the little man appears to keep her demanding that he gets what he is owed. The queen pleads to keep her baby and offers all the gold in the kingdom, but the imp insists that something living is worth more to him than gold. Yeah, if he can make gold, I think he's set in the riches department. Yeah, I see here, Poppy, your link here, but I can't copy paste it from the chat because I won't be able to access it after the stream. Just send me an email later. Thank you. The queen cries, and the imp takes pity on her. Apparently, he has a weakness for tears. He offers her a chance to keep her baby if she can guess his name within 3 days. Day after day, the queen guesses as many names as she can think of, even asking her subjects for help, from Bill to Balthazar to Skimbleshanks, but it is never the imp's name. Then, on the last day, one of the queen's servants says that he was in the woods and he heard someone singing that he'll have the queen's baby and she'll never guess that his name is Rumpelstiltskin. Now see, this is what happens when you gloat prematurely. So, when the little man comes, the queen asks if his name is Rumpelstiltskin. He screams that the devil told you! And in his rage, he splits himself in two. The end. Well, that was anticlimactic. So, this is not exactly a Beauty and the Beast story, but it does share some similar themes. Both Belle and the miller's daughter find themselves in an obscure arranged marriage situation due to a mistake made by their father. Shows how little control women have over their lives and their fathers pretty much deciding their lives for them, either intentionally or unintentionally. The difference is the miller's daughter gets outside help, and her story doesn't end with a marriage. She's stuck in a child custody battle. What I like about this tale is how no one is 100% good or evil. The miller's daughter is not at fault for her dad's bragging and doesn't get herself in this situation, but she is responsible for giving up her baby. Rumpelstiltskin made the girl promise her firstborn, but he did offer her a way out. And if you think about it, this guy does do all the work and the girl gets all the credit, and she breaks her promise. Like you said, Poppy, you kind of feel bad that he doesn't get what he wants. And he literally did everything in the story. He saved this girl's life and he gets nothing in return. And a baby's a big thing to ask, but so is spinning straw into gold. This guy gives everyone what they want and he gets nothing in return. He gets the short end of the stick in this fairy tale. There are variants of this tale all around the world, from Arabic to Chinese to Norwegian, all featuring a heroine, well, in some cases, a male protagonist, given a task and a magical being doing it for them, but for a price, unless they can guess their name or something like that. There is an English version called Tom Tit Tot, in which the heroine has to spin, instead of just regular gold, 5 yards of yarn each night for a month for her new husband, or else she will die. Again, abusive situation here. But she never learned how to spin, and Tom Tit Tot does it for her, giving her 3 chances to guess his name each night. Only instead of asking for a baby in return, he asks for herself. Which, leads to the question of whether that is a step up or a step down from the abusive husband who forces her to do work under the threat of death. Yeah, wow. Funnily enough, there's a children's book that offers an alternative ending to the fairy tale called Rumpelstiltskin's Daughter, in which the miller's daughter decides that, I don't want to marry the greedy old king. I would rather marry you, Rumpelstiltskin. And they run off together and they have a daughter. And the king then tries to pull the same thing with the daughter, thinking that she has the same gift as her mother, not really knowing what happened. But she uses her wits to trick the king into becoming a kind and giving one. I prefer this story because, honestly, I wouldn't want to marry a guy who forces you to do the impossible and threatens to kill you and is obsessed with gold. I'd take the magic man who can literally make gold and spin clothes and is a baby person. So this can be a Beauty and the Beast story. Plus, I'm into short guys. And it might show why Rumpelstiltskin was turned into a bit of a more romantic character in Once Upon a Time. Yes, Poppy X Branch, you are right. There are also some versions in the Fractured Fairy Tale from Rocky and Bullwinkle. I remember that there was one where he did get the child, but the child was so destructive that he just tried to bring him back and but I haven't guessed your name yet. It's Rumpelstiltskin. Oh, who would have a name like that? No, really, it's Rumpelstiltskin. There you really feel sorry for that guy. And then there was another one, Son of Rumpelstiltskin, where she failed to guess his name, but then he was but then she says, well, what is your name? Well, I actually don't know my name. I'll get back to you. And when he does find out that his name is Rumpelstiltskin, he's like, I can't go to her and say that my name is something so ridiculous. Let her keep the kid. You really gotta watch Fractured Fairy Tales from Rocky and Bullwinkle. Those were just genius. So, what this fairy tale means as a whole depends on your interpretation. In one sense, it's about a woman who is betrayed by 3 men in her life. First, her father for spreading that lie that gets her in trouble, and then the king for threatening to execute her, and then Rumpelstiltskin, who at first helps her and then just turns around and almost takes away her child. And in the traditional belief that names have power, it is only when the girl names her antagonist that she's able to take control of her own life. There are also themes of idleness or greed or boastfulness, how these vices all come with a price. Although, you can't say that the girl is particularly lazy, at least in the Grimm Brothers version, for not being able to spin straw into gold. I mean, nobody can do that. In some variants, like Tom Tit Tot, it is definitely due to the girl's own laziness, never learning how to spin, and not doing things for herself that she finds herself in this mess. Though if you think about it, the miller's daughter doesn't really do anything for herself either. She doesn't even guess Rumpelstiltskin's name for herself. Someone else does it for her. Unless you're looking at the fairy tale theater version with Shelley Duvall, when she goes into the woods herself and she finds Rumpelstiltskin and she finds out his name that way. Yeah, I do like that version. That is one of my favorites in the way that one was presented. But there is still a sense that if you want someone else to do your work for you, expect to pay a price. Or if you brag about something that isn't true, expect consequences. The dad doesn't suffer any consequences, but his daughter does. As the way goes in these fairy tales, if the parents mess up, it goes to the child. That happened in Beauty and the Beast. That happened in Rapunzel. Man, fairy tale parents are the worst. And then there's the greed of the king. I read one version which ended with the king getting his comeuppance. As he was crossing the drawbridge of the castle carrying his gold, it weighed him down so much that he fell into the moat with the crocodiles. Eek. Poetic justice we don't get in the original story. The king's the real villain here. Although some TV adaptations I've seen cause the king to change. Even after hearing the truth from the queen, he still finds that he loves her and is willing to help. Just like, as you said, Poppy, that Happily Ever After version, that king ended up realizing that there are some things that are worth more than gold, and that was his wife and child. Otherwise, this is an unhealthy marriage. I mean, what happens if the king wants more gold, and now that there's no Rumpelstiltskin, there's no way that she can get out of this. Do they explain that in the Grimm's version? No, they don't. Well, I guess not a lot of honesty in that relationship, at least in the original tale. The story also has a theme of duality, Rumpelstiltskin being neither good nor evil, and when he splits himself in two, he ruins that balance. There's also a theme of transformation with the straw into gold, like in alchemy, which was really popular at that time, and the miller's daughter into a queen, like the beast changing into a beauty. There's a lot to unpack from this story, but the bottom line, Rumpelstiltskin is no villain. He did an impossible task and was well within his right to ask for payment, as he would when you would do any service for somebody, like fix their plumbing. Like, you're not going to just do that randomly for free. And then, of course, oh-so-perfect mother changes her mind when he comes to collect. She doesn't even solve the problem herself, like I said. Someone else finds the answer for her. At least Belle had more agency in her decisions. Now, there's been quite a few book and TV adaptations of Rumpelstiltskin, and a few movies, but none with big theatrical treatment, in the sense that it's memorable. I know there's one that features Amy Irving, and that actually didn't have the king as the abusive person. It was his parents, actually, who were making the miller's daughter spin straw into gold, and it was actually the miller's daughter's own bragging and fantasizing that got her in trouble. But though, I think you'll recall, there aren't any Rumpelstiltskin movies that have as big a following as, say, all those Disney fairy tale movies. However, there is rumor of a movie in the works starring Peter Dinklage. You may know him from Game of Thrones and other things, in the titular role, and I'm excited for that. This must happen. We don't know exactly when. We don't know if it's going to be in a modern setting or just a traditional fairy tale setting, but we know it's very important to Peter Dinklage, and it may happen. I know that someday that I will be wanting to make my own version of Rumpelstiltskin, so be on the lookout out for that in the bookstores. Yeah, so if any of you patrons want to lend your thoughts in the chat right now, please do so. Poppy X Branch 2000 says, honesty is the best way to a healthy marriage. That is true. We cover that a lot in these stories that we share. And Bella PinkSavage says, there's never enough money in the world for you. The more you have, the more you'll want. That is right. Yes, and it is a roller coaster of a story. Thank you, Bella. Yeah, lot to unpack. Good and evil, custody battles, name guessing games. Yeah, it's definitely a lot. All right, and I just want to remind you, Bella, now that you've changed up the patron tier, you get to pick a new episode topic. We already decided the one for next week, but you can decide the one after that. And if you want, you can even be a co-host for that particular episode if you want to lend your thoughts. Yep. Bella paid extra for another tier so she can pick an episode topic now. But next time you patrons voted, we'll review the TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which has a whole slew of unconventional relationships, some healthy, some not so much, some ending in tragedy, so fair warning. Anyone else have any thoughts they'd like to lend before we close off this episode? I didn't have a lot of notes. Well, that's what happens when you're analyzing a much shorter story and not a much longer work. Okay, so Poppy X Branch says that she never saw Buffy, but is excited. Well, yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is worth the watch. It used to be on Netflix, I'm not so sure it is right now. But it is a very good show, but I should warn you, it's a real roller coaster of emotions. Very well done, but it's a roller coaster. And there will be major spoilers, I'm sorry. Alright, until next time, remember, all that glitters isn't gold. Don't have unrealistic expectations for your children or your spouses. And if you want a baby, go to an adoption agency. Don't get into some convoluted devil's deal type of thing, okay? Alright, and don't tell people that your children can spin straw into gold. That's just stupid. right, bye bye.